I never thought my life would turn out like this. For years, I had built a life with my wife, Emily, a life filled with trust, love, and sacrifices. At least, that's what I believed. We had been married for almost a decade, navigating the ups and downs together, and I had always thought we were solid. I worked hard to provide for us, often taking on extra hours, ensuring we had a comfortable home and a future we could look forward to. Emily was my world. She had this infectious laugh that could brighten even the darkest days, and when we were younger, I would do anything just to see her smile. But looking back, I should have seen the signs, the late nights, the sudden disinterest in our conversations, the way she would turn her phone screen away whenever I walked by. It wasn't until one fateful evening that my world shattered. I had come home earlier than expected from work. It was our anniversary, and I had planned a surprise, a nice dinner at her favorite restaurant, complete with a small gift I had spent months saving for. I walked through the front door, expecting to find Emily waiting for me. Instead, the house was quiet. Too quiet. I placed the gift on the table and started looking around. The moment I stepped into our bedroom, my stomach dropped. Her laptop was open on the bed, an email still pulled up on the screen. My heart pounded as I scanned the words. Last night was incredible. I can't wait to see you again. I miss the way you touch me. The message wasn't meant for me. A chill ran down my spine as I stared at the sender's name, Ryan. He wasn't just some stranger. He was someone I had trusted, a so-called friend who had been around our lives for years. I felt my chest tighten, the room closing in on me as the weight of betrayal settled in. My hands trembled as I closed the laptop, my mind racing with possibilities. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe, just maybe, there was some reasonable explanation for this. But deep down, I already knew the truth. I just didn't want to accept it. Emily walked in minutes later, her face lighting up for a brief second before she saw my expression. She knew. "What's wrong?" she asked, feigning innocence. I turned the laptop toward her. "Explain this." Her face paled, and for a moment I saw the mask slip. Her mouth opened and closed as if she were scrambling for an excuse, but no words came out. Then, like a switch, she changed tactics. "Why were you going through my laptop?" she snapped, tried to turn it around on me. "That's private." I let out a bitter laugh. "Private? You think that's the issue here? You've been sleeping with Ryan?" She hesitated, but I saw it, the slight shift in her posture, the way she averted her gaze. And that was all the confirmation I needed. "It's not what you think," she finally said, but her voice wavered. "Then tell me what it is, Emily," I demanded, my voice rising. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she crossed her arms, her expression shifting into something defensive. "We haven't been happy for a long time, David," she muttered. "I didn't mean for this to happen, but I felt neglected. You're always working, always busy, and Ryan, he was there for me." Her words hit me like a slap to the face. Neglected? I had been working my ass off to give us a good life. And Ryan? The man I had welcomed into our home, trusted as a friend? So, instead of talking to me, you decided to sleep with him? My voice was cold now, void of any emotion. Tears welled up in her eyes, but I wasn't sure if they were real or just a manipulation tactic. "I never wanted to hurt you," she whispered. I took a deep breath, trying to control the storm brewing inside me. It's too late for that. At that moment, something inside me shifted. The love I had for her, the trust, the admiration, was drowned beneath the betrayal. I knew things would never be the same again. I walked past her, grabbed my keys, and left the house. I needed space. I needed to think. But one thing was clear: the life I thought I had was over. I spent the night at a cheap motel, unable to sleep, my mind replaying everything over and over again. The betrayal, the lies, the excuses, it all made my stomach turn. How long had this been going on? Had they laughed behind my back? Had they used me as a fool while I worked to give Emily the life she wanted? By the time the sun rose, I had made my decision. I wasn't going to beg, plead, or let her manipulate me. I was done. I returned home that morning, my heart pounding in my chest as I pushed open the door. Emily was in the kitchen, her eyes red and puffy, coffee untouched on the counter. The moment she saw me, she rushed forward. "David, I want a divorce." She froze. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. It was as if she hadn't expected me to say it, as if she thought she could explain this all away. "David, please," she said, her voice shaking. "I know I messed up, but let's talk about this. We built a life together. We can fix this." I clenched my jaw. "Fix this? How do you expect to fix this, Emily? You made a choice. You didn't just slip up or make a mistake. You had an affair. And not just with anyone, but with someone I trusted." Tears streamed down her face, but I refused to let myself feel anything. "It didn't mean anything," she whispered, reaching for my hand, but I pulled away. "You don't get to decide that. It meant enough for you to risk everything we had." She started sobbing, collapsing onto the chair, her body trembling. But I didn't comfort her. I couldn't. "I'll be moving out," I continued. "I'll have my lawyer reach out. You can keep the house. I don't want anything to do with it." Her head snapped up. "What? You heard me. I don't want this place. It's tainted." She shook her head frantically. "No, David, please. We can go to counseling. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll cut Ryan off. Don't you get it?" I snapped. "There is no we anymore." She broke down again, but I didn't stay to watch. I turned and walked upstairs to start packing my things. I moved into a small apartment across town, barely big enough for one person, but it didn't matter. I needed a fresh start. At first, I struggled to sleep, my mind racing with thoughts of Emily and Ryan. Did she regret it? Was she still seeing him? Did she ever really love me? Or was I just a safety net until something more exciting came along? Days turned into weeks, and though the pain lingered, I started reclaiming my life. I focused on work, went to the gym, and reconnected with old friends I had neglected over the years. I even started dating again. Not seriously, but just enough to remind myself that I was still worth something. Meanwhile, Emily's life began to crumble. She reached out to me often, sometimes crying, sometimes angry. At first, I ignored her calls, but then the messages started. "David, please, I need to talk to you. I made a mistake. I miss you. Ryan isn't who I thought he was." That last message caught my attention. I shouldn't have cared, but curiosity got the better of me. So I did a little digging. Ryan had a reputation, one I had been too blind to see before. He wasn't the kind of guy to settle down. He had a history of jumping from one woman to another, always chasing the next thrill. And apparently, Emily had just been another conquest to him. A mutual friend told me that after I left Emily, Ryan had started pulling away. He stopped answering her calls, stopped coming around. She had thrown everything away for him, and now he was gone. I should have felt bad for her. I didn't. She had made her choice, and now she was living with the consequences. One evening, I was at my apartment when my phone rang. Emily's name flashed on the screen. Against my better judgment, I answered. "David," she breathed. "Thank God. I didn't think you'd pick up. What do you want, Emily?" A long pause. Then, in a small, broken voice, she said, "I miss you." I let out a bitter laugh. "You miss me? Funny, because a few months ago, you missed Ryan." "I was stupid," she admitted. "I thought he loved me, but he didn't. He just used me. And now, I've lost everything." I didn't say anything, letting the silence stretch. "Please, David," she whispered. "Can we meet? Just to talk." I hesitated, then sighed. "Fine." One conversation. We agreed to meet at a small coffee shop near my place. When I walked in, I barely recognized her. She looked exhausted, her once vibrant eyes dull, her frame thinner than before. She offered a small smile. "Hi." I sat across from her, crossing my arms. "You wanted to talk?" She nodded, looking down at her hands. I need you to know how sorry I am. I ruined everything, and I hate myself for it." I didn't respond. She swallowed hard. "I miss you, David. I miss us. I know I don't deserve a second chance, but I'd do anything to fix this." I leaned back, studying her. "What exactly do you want, Emily? Because I don't think you want me. I think you just don't like being alone." Her eyes widened. "That's not true, isn't it?" I cut her off. "If Ryan had stayed, would you be sitting here right now?" She opened her mouth, but no words came out. "I've moved on, Emily," I continued, my voice firm. "I've spent months rebuilding my life. I'm not the same guy who walked out of that house heartbroken, and I'm not going to be your backup plan." Tears welled in her eyes. "Please, David, just give me one more chance." I stood up, throwing some cash on the table. "I already did, and you threw it away. Her shoulders shook as she tried to hold back her sobs, but I didn't stay to comfort her. I turned and walked out the door, finally feeling free. She had made her bed. Now, she had a lie in it. Walking out of that coffee shop should have been the final chapter in my story with Emily. I had said my piece, made it clear that I was done, and left her to deal with the mess she had created. But life wasn't that simple. A few weeks after our meeting, I started hearing more about Emily's downfall. Our mutual friends, some of whom had distanced themselves from her after the affair, began to mention how she was struggling. She had quit her job, claiming she was too emotionally drained to continue. The house she had fought to keep was now a financial burden, and without my income to support her, she was drowning in debt. Still, I didn't care. At least, that's what I told myself. One evening, I was at the gym and my phone rang. It was an unknown number, but I answered anyway. David. The voice was shaky. It was Emily. I sighed, rubbing my temple. What do you want? A pause. Then, in a barely audible voice, she whispered, I don't have anywhere else to go. I frowned. What do you mean? She let out a choked sob. The house, it's gone. I tried to keep up with the payments, but I couldn't. I had to sell it. I used the money to clear some debts, but now I have nothing. No job, no home, no one. I stayed silent, unsure of how to respond. I know I don't deserve your help, she continued. But please, David, I don't know what to do. Her words should have meant nothing to me. She had thrown me away for another man, humiliated me, and expected me to be her safety net when everything fell apart. But a part of me, some small, stupid part, still remembered the woman I had once loved. The woman I had built a life with. And despite everything, I couldn't turn my back completely. Where are you staying now? I asked, my voice guarded. Nowhere. That one word hit me harder than I expected. Against my bitter judgment, I sighed. Meet me at the diner on Main Street. We'll talk. When I arrived at the diner, I saw her immediately. She was sitting in a booth near the window, her posture slumped, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of a napkin. She looked different. The confident, put-together woman I had once known was gone. In her place was someone who looked utterly lost. I slid into the booth across from her. She glanced up, her eyes red and hollow. David, she breathed, relief washing over her face. I held up a hand. Don't mistake this for something it's not. I just want to hear what you have to say. She nodded quickly, swallowing hard. I messed up. I know that. I destroyed everything, and now I have nothing left. Ryan left me the moment things got hard. My friends don't want to be around me. I lost my job, my home, everything. And it's all my fault. I didn't interrupt. She exhaled shakily. I never realized how much you did for me, how much you held everything together. I took you for granted. I thought I could do better, but I was wrong. I leaned back. And what do you want from me now? Her eyes filled with desperation. A second chance. I let out a dry laugh. A second chance? Emily, what part of this makes you think that's even an option? She flinched. I begged you. I continued, my voice hard. I asked you if there was someone else, and you lied to my face. You let me walk into a room and see you with him. You didn't care about me then, so why should I care about you now? Her lip trembled. Because I was stupid. Because I made a mistake. No, I corrected. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is losing your temper in an argument. What you did was a choice. She broke down, sobbing into her hands. People around us were starting to stare, but I didn't care. After a long silence, she wiped her face and whispered, I don't know how to fix this. I met her gaze, my expression unreadable. You can't. Her breath hitched. Please, David. I'll do anything. I stood up, tossing some cash on the table. It's too late, Emily. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. As I walked out of the diner, I didn't feel satisfaction or victory, just a deep, overwhelming sense of finality. For the first time since this nightmare began, I knew I was finally free. The days following my final conversation with Emily felt strangely quiet. For the first time in years, there was no weight pressing on my chest, no constant replaying of painful memories in my mind. It was over, and yet, every now and then, I would catch myself wondering, where did she go after that night? I didn't reach out to ask. I had given her my answer, and I wasn't about to be pulled back into the mess she had created. But life had a way of bringing closure in unexpected ways. One afternoon, I stopped by the grocery store to pick up a few things. As I moved through the aisles, I heard a familiar voice behind me. David. I turned, and for the second time in weeks, I found myself staring at Emily. But this time, she looked worse than before. Her clothes were wrinkled, her hair unkempt. She was holding a basket with only a few items: instant noodles, a small carton of milk, a couple of apples. I hesitated. Emily. She gave me a small, almost embarrassed smile. Didn't expect to run into you here. I nodded slowly, unsure of what to say. She glanced at her basket, then sighed. I got a job at a diner. It doesn't pay much, but it's something. I studied her, noting the dark circles under her eyes. That's good. She let out a dry chuckle. Yeah, it's humbling, I guess. I used to complain about stupid things, about you being too busy, about wanting more. And now I'd give anything just to go back to that life. I didn't respond. She exhaled sharply. I just want to say, I get it now. I get why you don't want me back. I get why you don't care anymore. For the first time, there was no pleading in her voice. No desperate attempts to manipulate or guilt me. Just quiet acceptance. I nodded. I hope you figure things out, Emily. She looked down at the floor. Me too. Without another word, I turned and walked away. The weeks that followed were different. There was no more anger, no more bitterness. I had faced Emily, seen her fall, and realized that her downfall wasn't something I needed to dwell on anymore. Instead, I focused on myself. I started going out more, reconnecting with old friends, and even picking up new hobbies. One evening, while out with some coworkers, I met someone, Lisa. She was kind, funny, and had a way of making conversations feel effortless. It was different from what I had with Emily. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something that wasn't pain. I wasn't rushing into anything. I wasn't trying to fill a void. But I was finally open to the possibility of something new. As I sat across from Lisa at the cafe, laughing over a shared joke, I realized this was what moving on looked like. And it felt good. Months passed, and with each day, Emily became more of a distant memory. There was no dramatic final confrontation, no unexpected twists, just the slow, steady process of moving forward. I hadn't seen or heard from her since that day at the grocery store, and I didn't feel the need to check in. She had made her choices, and I had made mine. For the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. One evening, as I was finishing up at work, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was an email from Emily. I hesitated before opening it. Subject: I hope you're doing well. David. I don't expect you to respond, but I wanted to reach out one last time. First, I want to say that I'm sorry. Not just for what I did, but for how I treated you. You gave me everything, and I threw it away for something that was never real. I see that now. Losing you was the worst thing that ever happened to me, but it was also the wake-up call I needed. I spent so long blaming everyone else for my mistakes, but the truth is, I was the problem. I was selfish, ungrateful, and blind to what I had. I'm not writing this to ask for another chance. I know that's not possible. I just want you to know that I truly regret everything. And I hope, someday, you can remember me as more than just the woman who betrayed you. Thank you for everything. I hope you found happiness. Emily. I stared at the screen for a long time, rereading her words. There was no anger left, no lingering resentment, just a quiet, simple understanding. She had finally accepted the consequences of her actions. And so had I. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. A few weeks later, I was sitting across from Lisa at a small cafe. It had become our routine, grabbing coffee after work, talking about everything and nothing. She smiled at me over the rim of her cup. You seem lighter lately. Happier. I took a sip of my coffee, nodding. I think I am. She tilted her head. So what happened? With her. I exhaled, setting my cup down. She lost everything. And for a while, she wanted me back. But it was never really about me. It was about what she lost. Lisa studied me for a moment. And how do you feel about it now? I thought about it. The heartbreak, the betrayal, the anger. The nights I spent wondering what I'd done wrong. The pain of realizing that the person I loved had never valued me the way I valued her. Then I thought about now. About this moment. About the simple joy of sitting here, sharing a conversation with someone who saw me for who I was. I smiled. I feel free. Lisa reached across the table, her fingers brushing against mine. Good. You deserve that. And for the first time in a long time, I believed it.